We are City of Five Nations podcast. I'm Daniel Shaughnessy, and again, in our series, Police Positive, Fulfilling Your Dream, we have another wonderful police officer, a local Shawnee product, to introduce to you today. And I'm going to bring on Major Rod Taylor. Rod?
Hello.
And you've got a lot of great guys working down there. How does that happen? How do you find them, Rod?
Well, thankfully, we have had a great group of police officers on this past week, and we have so many more that have not had a chance to be on. But it's been nice to really give the community a look at what the caliber of officers that we do have. Our city is so lucky and very fortunate to have these officers, and I think what brings them into the police department are probably the very same things that drew me in and my interest in becoming a police officer. And it just goes back to the very basic virtue of really wanting to serve the community. And like I said before, Shawnee's such a great fit for us, and being able to do that, I think we have a little more freedom as police officers to do that in this size community. And we have the ability to be in different roles throughout the day, where some larger cities or smaller cities, you may be tied down to just one particular role during the whole day, or one particular sector or district or area of town the whole day. And these officers get a chance to really grow and really be so well-rounded throughout their career. And it is a big draw for the community.
Yeah, existing police officers are really great guys, and we're looking for some more. The nature of this show, as well as to introducing the police officers that we have, is perhaps introducing a police officer as a career for someone. And as I understand, that process is beginning up again in your cycle system.
Yes, we have a testing coming up June 10th. So I encourage all of those that are interested in being a police officer. If you're kind of on the fence about it and you just don't know, come out and give it a try.
It certainly, we have learned, is an exciting and really kind of fun job to be able to have. And there's a lot of diversity, as you've explained, Major Taylor. Let me let you go for a moment. I'll bring you back in a second, but let's bring on Corporal Michael Myers. And Michael, as you come on, tell us a little bit about yourself. Mike, you're from around here, aren't you?
Yeah, I went to Shawnee High School. I grew up in Shawnee. My parents had a lot of influence in the community here. I guess that's kind of what led me to join the police department in a way. I'm just glad you guys brought me on here, and I'm here to answer anything that you guys need me to answer.
Well, Mike, tell us a little bit about your journey to become a police officer. In the sense, did you always want to become a police officer? Was there something that happened that determined that you would become a police officer? Or, did you just kind of go, I'm going to apply?
Kind of a little of all the above. I always kind of wanted to be a police officer since, growing up as a kid. I had a really good job at OG&E, and I kind of stuck with that for a while. But I have two really close true brothers that work for the police department as well. Sergeant Andrew Terry, I did a ride along with him. I guess I was probably maybe 23, 24 years old, and that's something that kind of hooked me. I know Richard Rees yesterday spoke about how he did a ride along, and it kind of sucked him into it. And it's kind of the same way for me. I always kind of wanted to be a police officer, but once I actually got to see what they actually do every day and hear Sergeant Terry's stories that he's told, I thought I had to get a part of it. And then I got to a certain position that I was able to apply with the police department, and I haven't looked back since.
So you enjoy your job, obviously, Michael. And what happened that night during the ride-along bit? Anything in particular?
I was kind of one of those crazy nights. He worked the evening shift, so he worked the 3 to 11 shift. And there was a couple of pretty hot calls, as we call them, in progress calls, chasing people down, stuff like that. But it wasn't just that. It was the interaction with the community that we do every day. It wasn't just chasing the bad guys, which is it's fun, but it's also, stopping and playing basketball with the kids at the community center, or driving through the YMCA waving at people. We going to Boy Scout Park and just checking on people and see how they're doing. When you combine all those aspects of being a police officer, I just love every part of it, and I knew that's just something that I had to do.
That's wonderful. And when we talk about hot calls, we've got to bring on the dispatch, because those are the people who make those calls hot. Chrissy, tell us a little bit about Michael, and do you have a question for him, perhaps?
I do. I remember when Mike, when he first started, I had not taken over the position that I'm in now, but he would sit in dispatch with us, and he was ready to go. Like, he didn't want to sit still. He was interested in the radio, but he was ready to go and get out on the streets. And one of the things that I can say about him is he's got more energy on a shift than I've probably had in my whole life, because he is just nonstop. But he's got a smile on his face. He's pleasant. One of the things that we always joke about with him is he's just nonstop. He is going from one call to the next. I mean, he's just got energy to go. And he's probably the most forgiving officer when it comes to the radio, because, like I said, there are some times when we don't have a good conversation over the radio, but he takes it, he goes on, and you can come see him face to face, and it's like nothing ever happened. So I really appreciate that about him. He is fun on the radio. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Mike, that comes across even here. You're kind of like boom, 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 next. Boom, 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 next. Do you feel that perhaps is an asset for yourself? And how does that play for you when you're out on your beat?
Believe it or not, I've toned it down a little bit. I've had to kind of get it under control. But yeah, it's definitely a positive thing. I tend to be a very positive person. Very few times will you ever hear me talk negative or not have a smile on my face. I mean, I do have to use my police voice every now and then, but I've grown over the years to learn that if I can use my positivity and my upbeatness or my happiness or whatever you want to call it to diffuse anything, it just goes that much easier as far as like with the community, with the citizens, with the suspects, with other officers, and definitely with dispatch. We can't do anything that we're able to do without any one of them sitting behind that computer telling us where to go, what to do, where everybody's at. And there's no need in dragging them down or getting upset. People make mistakes. We all know that. And we just go on with the next thing.
Well, Chrissy, do you have a question perhaps for Mike that we'd like to hear the answer to?
I do. How do you, I know in here from dispatch to patrol, we deal with the same people. And I know that there are times that we set the tone for the responder going on scene, which sometimes isn't necessarily the best. But tell me, how do you get into the mindset of dealing with difficult people when you know that the situation isn't going to de-escalate with just a calm understanding? How do you keep yourself in the mindset that you've got to deal with this and you've got to get it taken care of the best way possible?
Every situation is different. I mean, you guys know that, especially you, Chrissy, and all the dispatchers. Every call, every situation is completely different. So when we get on scene, we want to just kind of analyze the situation and talk to all the people involved. And once I get to know kind of what happens on the situation, that's the tone I tend to take with the situation. It could be somebody that has a lost kid who's very upset and out of control, and rightfully so. And you have to kind of see what you would do if you were in their shoes, and how upset you would be. God forbid if something happened to one of my kids, but I would be completely out of control, and I've got to put myself in their shoes and kind of meet them on that level and try to drag them down with me. And then once we can get everybody under control, then we can figure out, what the next step is going to be in a calm and collected manner as best we can.
Well, calm and collected, Major Taylor, we bring you back in, and when you have guys like Michael Myers out on the street, that's good for all of us. What are the characteristics that you noticed in Mike that really helped you determine that he would be a wonderful police officer?
Well, he's obviously has a bunch of great characteristics. He kind of touched on one of them as that first interaction on the call can be so important. And believe it or not, he's a great listener. You wouldn't think so, but he realizes when he first arrives to a call that he needs to listen, to find out from them what's going on, what happened. And it's so crucial during that first interaction. It's kind of like meeting someone for the first time. It's hard to change that first impression, and especially for victims, they just want to be heard. And our officers do a great job of doing that. Michael is really good at that, and finding out what happened and just listening and giving them those first few moments to vent, to let them tell the officer what happened. That's one of his great characteristics. Obviously, he's always upbeat, and that can change the whole dynamics of a very volatile situation, such as a domestic. And it's really important for the officers to understand that. And I kind of wish that maybe the state would do more training in the academy for interpersonal communications, maybe spend a little more time on that. And we can really see that those officers who have had to deal with the public one-on-one, we can see where that really pays off later.
Well, Mike, with the ability to listen, is that something that you came on the job with, or as you said, you've kind of toned some things down otherwise? Is that something that you learned through being a police officer?
I absolutely did not come onto this job doing that. I've been here almost 10 years now, and it's just crazy to kind of look back on some of the stuff that you did when you were, a rookie or starting out as an officer, and compared to some of the stuff that you do now. I think the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my 10-year career is just to be patient. And sometimes that's really hard for anyone to do, whether you're upbeat like me or whether you're not. Patience is definitely one of the best things a police officer, in my opinion, can add to their tool belt. Many times that I've gone on, and like Major said, sitting there and just letting somebody yell at you for a minute or, get it off their chest. He may have come home from work, had a bad day, just like every single one of us, including those officers, and just let him vent at you for a little bit. During my first months or years at the police department, if some guy would have came out of the house and started yelling at me, it would have been a totally different ballgame. But that's what we're kind of pushing now is that to just listen and be patient and interact with people instead of treat every single person as it's the first time you've seen them. Because like you guys said, the first interaction with a police officer can be so important. Whether it's a young kid or an adult, the first interaction that they see could be something that's instilled in their mind for the rest of their life, and we want that to be a positive one.
Well, Chrissy, I know you try to keep every conversation positive as well. How does that work for you guys? You take that initial call. Can you work patiently with the caller, or is it something that you kind of got to get them into it because there's an emergency happening and you have to get some things rolling?
We want to be patient, and as long as time allows, we have that opportunity to really let a caller tell us everything that they need to, but there needs to be more public education in the 911 area because there's a limited number of people in this room, and we dispatch calls for all of Pot County, for medical parts of Lincoln County, Okfuskee County, and Seminole County. So we've got 60,000 people just in Pottawatomie County that we're caring for with a limited amount of people in there, plus these other counties that it's medical, fire, and police calls. Sometimes we need to get as much information we can, pass it on, and get off the phone because we can't afford to spend a lot of time on non-emergency calls when somebody may be calling 911 and have an actual emergency. That means the longer we're on one call that's not an emergency, we're taking attention away from that person who has a true emergency and needs a response now.
So public education, very important in communicating on 911 calls, and education overall, Major Taylor, in the room with your officers. When you have somebody seasoned like you have with corporate 10 years into it, he picks up on nuances like, hey, patience and listening. Are those things that you try to help through your meetings and through your daily trainings with the kids? Oh my gosh, with the police officers when you're dealing in the meeting room on your daily basis?
Yeah, you're right. They're still our kids. But yeah,
man,
the supervisors and the training officers, they do an awesome job of continuing to push out the latest information and techniques used and that are nationally accepted. So Shawnee continues to be on the cutting edge of that information, and we push that out through the briefings and the continued education and trainings that we have throughout the year.
So, Michael, when you came on, I'm sure you had your ride along and you had some perceptions of police officers and what it was going to be like. How did that change after you became a police officer and maybe a couple of years in? What was it that you maybe perceived was going to be the way that it was, but then it was actually different?
Well, I mean, like every other person that grows up, wanting to be a police officer, everybody thinks that you come on and we drive around, we write tickets and we chase bad guys. I mean, we do that, but there's a lot more to being a police officer. And I didn't expect that we have such a reach on the community like we do. Whether it be like I was saying earlier, just stopping and saying hi to some kids in a park, or maybe, help, as cliche as this sounds, helping an old lady across the street, whatever it may be. But there's so much more to being a police officer, and it's so gratifying than just what you see on TV, writing tickets and chasing bad guys. And once I could gather all of that together, that's just what I knew I wanted to do. I was like, I thought I could make such an impact in the community that I grew up in and that my parents raised me in, and that I was going to raise my kids in, and all the above. And that's just what I wanted to be a part of.
Well, Chrissy, somebody wanting to be a part of your position at the police department, when we're talking about dispatch, what would they expect?
That's a good question. My first night, I remember coming on, and the very first night, this is 19-year-old Chrissy coming into dispatch, and I remember an officer, it was Officer 35. He's gone on to be a trooper now, but he keyed up, shots fired, shots fired. Okay, I thought, oh my goodness, this is what every night's going to be like. This is going to be great. I had no clue that he had been attacked by a dog. It was a Rottweiler, and that's what the problem was. I went in thinking that's what this job's going to be. And I can tell you that the amount of times that I've heard shots fired on the radio in my 14 years has been very little. Like maybe I could say on, 10 times, if that. And it's been, fortunately, it hasn't been high stress situations. It's primarily been dogs. But those are the types of things that draw you in. Like Mike said, he had gone on his ride along, and there's little things that pull you in. I actually have a teaching license. I went to school to be an educator, but this is where my heart is. It's constantly changing. The days are new. There's nothing that's the same. Everything's constantly evolving and changing. And I'll tell you, with the COVID virus, that's changed everything significantly for us, because we're dealing with new things that we didn't deal with 10 years ago. And things come up like that every now and then, that everything changes. You're still dealing with things in a similar fashion, but it's new. So that's the part that keeps it exciting. It's always new. There's always something interesting to get your attention, even when you think, oh, I'm a little burnt out. Nope, there's that one day that you're hooked right back in, and the passion's there.
Well, Major Taylor, when you're looking at a recruit, what sort of things are the characteristics that you're looking for up front, knowing that there's a lot of the unknowns that they're just going to have to get through experience, in the sense of they come in with certain aspirations and certain expectations that are just not true because it's not television. What are some of the things that you look for?
Yeah, we can definitely provide more training. We can provide opportunities for them to get more education, but they need to show up with integrity and that true selfless desire to serve the community. Those things, either you have them or you don't. And if you don't have that desire to serve, it's difficult to be a police officer. But we just want an honest person, whether they're the most physically fit or not. It doesn't matter. You know, those things we can improve on, and we can provide more training and those types of things. But the things that you definitely need are good character.
Well, Mike, coming in, I'm sure you had many assets. I know you're a physically fit guy. Obviously, you communicate well. You get along with people. What was maybe the biggest thing or the biggest obstacle you ran into that you had to overcome, you knew, in order to be successful, to make police officer a career for yourself?
I mean, we kind of already talked about it, but I mean, be quiet and listen. I mean, I like to take over stuff. When I first got on here, I'd like to take over the scene, be Mr. Policeman, and, you know, not shut up, for lack of a better word. And once I learned how to really kind of do that and get a kind of somewhat of a handle on it, there's so much, it makes this job so much easier. And like I said, the community looks at you, you know, so much better, not so much as like, you know, oh, super police guy, but, you know, you're an actual person just like them.
Yeah, I didn't know that we could nail it that quickly, and that would be the only thing. But was there a moment or a time that you realized, oh, you know, I need to back off on this, or I need to become a better listener, or, you know, was there something that happened that made that click on you, or was it just something over time that kind of wore you down and you thought, I need to get better at this?
You know, just taking criticism from my peers and people like Major Taylor, who was the lieutenant whenever I started on the force, and also you know looking from the outside, you know, asking the dispatchers, what do you think I did wrong here, and just, you know, being able to take that constructive criticism from the vets of the police department and from your supervisors and from your friends and even people that are lower than you. I don't have any boundaries in this job. If somebody that's been on this department for 2 years sees that I'm making a mistake or I think I should do something better, I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to try to get better at it. But I did have that one moment you're talking about, and I was in phase 1 FTO, and it was kind of like one of those things. Now, me as an FTO, everybody has that one moment to where they kind of start to get it. And I see it a lot as a field training officer. And I'll never forget when that one time we had a girl go ballistic on us one time, and I didn't know what to do. I just like grabbed a hold of her, and they were like, okay, well, oh, you could be a cop now. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, I can do this stuff. And then once it just kind of clicked in my head that, you know, I can take charge of stuff and, you know, learn when to put handcuffs on people, when to be easy, and when to use the different faces that we use every single day. It just makes the job that much more easy.
Yeah, that's actually very insightful, Mike, in the sense of, you know, just growing through that maturity, but also listening, like you said earlier as well, to other people and what they have to say. And then, I mean, taking it personally to change, but not taking it personally like it's something against you or something. It's just everybody trying to get better.
Absolutely. And, you know, we work with around 70 officers in our police department, and we're all one big happy family. I would do anything for any one of these guys or anybody in dispatch or any of the people that help us upstairs or in records or anything like that. And we have to come together just like we do in the community. We have to be one. If we're going to be a better city, a better town, a better community, we have to work together. And that's what the citizens, the police department, the fire department, the EMS that we work with a lot, we have to start coming together and be more positive, and that way we can live in a better community. And I think that's something that we all want.
But it is for sure. And for 20 years, Mike, it couldn't have been better. We've been saying it, Sean ECTV, together we build community, one season at a time. Right, Chrissy?
Yes, together.
I know you have a question for Mike, I'm sure.
Yes. Something that we haven't really touched on with Mike, what is it that got you interested in the canine position? What prompted you to go for that?
Number one, I love dogs. I had a German Shepherd before I got Lennon, my current canine. And something happened with him medically, and he had to be put down, and it destroyed me. And I told myself I'd never have another dog until I joined the police department and got to work with some of the guys like Lieutenant Hudgens, who's been a canine officer for years, and Captain Greenland, who's an amazing canine trainer. And once I got to interact with them both on the streets and in training, that's just something I knew I wanted to do from day one. And it took me a couple times. There was a lot of people that wanted to apply for one of our canine positions, and I just bid my time and did the right things and continue to work with the dogs and stuff like that. I was lucky enough to get a canine.
So, Major Taylor, that touches again. We haven't talked to anybody who's done canine. We've talked to so many different realms that's available for young men and ladies in the police department.
Yeah. And Michael, I think he's had several collateral duties, I think. And my questions were going to be about some of those collateral duties, and because after you're on for a couple of years in patrol, and we've talked just so far about his patrol duties, but I think he's done so many more things like bike patrol and SWAT team, and then he's got the canine going on now, and I don't know that we've asked any canine questions, so my question was going to be, can you explain the role of the dog? What is the police dog's role in the shop?
What is the police dog's role
department
in the police department?
Okay, well, our dogs have several roles. We're one of the departments that are fortunate enough to have more than one. We actually have 6 canine officers now, and we have 2 assigned to every single shift, and we both have rotating days off. So there's one scheduled 24/7. But to answer his question directly, our dogs, all of our dogs are dual purpose dogs, which means they're drug dogs and they're tracking dogs, they're handler protection, and they're suspect apprehension dogs. We train dogs constantly around the clock, whether we have training days or whether we have time before or after the shift, or we come to each other, we go to each other's houses and we train. But our dogs are pretty well seasoned, and like I said, we have a great trainer. Captain Greenland's been training dogs for years, but our dogs can track people in the field, whether they bail out in a car on a pursuit or narcotics. All of our dogs, all 6 of our dogs, are phenomenal narcotics detection.
Officer Greenland, you mentioned Captain Greenland. I've seen you guys at work a couple of times. He is an amazing trainer, isn't he? What sets our dogs apart? I mean, I don't hear of a lot of departments around the state having such a dog team available at all times.
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Yeah, Captain Greenland being a great trainer is definitely one of a great asset to our department. And it comes from, us seizing asset forfeiture money and, continuing to fund our canine department. Our department's very, very fortunate that we get what we get. Like I said, we have 6 dogs. We have an active SWAT team that can be called out, which I'm on that too. At any moment, we're all on call 24/7. We get our own take-home cars if you live within so far of the city limits. And as Major said, we're well trained. There's very few times that we put in for these training opportunities around the state, even out of state, that we don't really get to go to. If it's something relevant, our department's going to train you. And like Major said, if you have the integrity and the want to come be a police officer, we can teach you how to be a police officer. It's the integrity and the moral standards that we're looking for, and I think that's a huge asset. But we can train, and we're very, very, very fortunate to be able to get that training.
Well, we're very fortunate to have young men like yourself, Michael, on the police force. To hear you talk, I don't even have to ask you to do your best invitation. You've done inviting the whole time today. It sounds like you certainly enjoy your career.
I do. I love it. I don't think I'll ever do anything else.
Well, we thank you for your time and your service with us. And hey, man, thanks for coming on. You made it go by very quickly. I don't know
if it's
because you come. Say that again?
You want to meet my dog?
Yeah, Lennon. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's meet him.
Okay, I got my sons bringing him in here now.
Okay, that sounds good. Hey, Ron, as we wait for Lennon, please ask.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was going to bring the dog on. That's exciting.
Yeah, bring
And
it on.
you might explain where you are and that you do take the dog home with you, and how that
Yeah,
interacts with your family and how that goes.
absolutely. I think me and Lennon are the longest team that's been together. I'm not the oldest canine handler, but since dogs retire out, but me and Lennon have been together almost 6 years now, I think. He just turned 8 years old. He's half Malinois, half Shepherd, we think. And we recruited him from the Lackland Air Force Base in down by San Antonio, and then we brought him up, and then Captain Greenland started the training on him, and then I was able to get him in. But
Yeah.
here, sit. You see, tilt that down. But here he is. This is my buddy. He's kind of got his gray beard going on right now. So yeah, we do get to we bring our dogs home every single night. They live with me. They live with my kids. They live with my wife. It took a while to get us accommodated to that, especially the first year or so. But my kids, he loves my kids. He loves my wife. My son, my daughter can take him walking around anytime they want to. And actually, he's kind of getting spoiled by my wife right now. We're going to have to kind of knock that off a little bit.
That's wonderful.
So-
What a beautiful dog. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Rod.
So how is the canine handler picked, and how are you paired with the dog?
That's a pretty good question. I mean, we apply in special projects to be a canine just like you would any other special project, whether it's the SWAT team or something like that. Once we have about 2 years on, we can apply to be a canine once a position's open. And then this is where the trainer comes in. You know, Captain Greenland's really good at selecting the right dog for the right handler. And trust me, he couldn't have selected a better dog for me because he's just as high strung as I am. He's actually
I
being
don't know,
good
man.
right now.
Yeah, he is. He's being great. He doesn't look high strung. He looks like he loves you. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's my buddy. He's pretty much my third kid, so.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for your time, and thank you to your
Absolutely.
son for bringing Lennon in for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
You too, guys.
So, Rod, man, wow. We could have started with that canine stuff, man. Bring that up early. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, I didn't have a chance. We were just talking about, he could go on and on about patrol, but I wanted everyone to know that there's just so much more than just patrol at Shawnee PD. I mean, look at all he's been involved. And we didn't even talk about the bicycles. He was on the bicycle team as well. So there's a lot going on.
Well, Richard yesterday, I think was saying maybe the bikes weren't the best place to be, but Michael probably could handle it. That was probably who Richard was chasing. He was probably trying to chase Michael.
Yeah.
Chrissy, that's pretty special. How do you know when you have to send out the dog patrol, in the sense of, is that just something that you know, or do they have to ask for them? How does that work?
Sometimes if we're getting a request from another agency, we'll ask the shift supervisor because it depends on where the dog's needed. But because the dogs are readily available, they're with their handler. If they're on duty, we've got one right then and there, and they usually let us know the dog's working. We've had it was a reported robbery a few months back, and actually Mike was on evening shift. And when he was dispatched, the person had taken off on foot near the railroad tracks, and Mike actually helped track the dog with Lennon. So it's not uncommon that they're used, but fortunately, because they are so readily available, they're good about letting us know, hey, we're going to go ahead and pull the dogs out. And then at that point, we show them attached to the call and dispatch. The canine officers get just as much credit as the regular patrol officers when they're dispatched to calls and all their stats.
That's really another cool aspect that we don't think about very often when we think about the police department. And tomorrow, Major Taylor, we have Corporal Rand Brunt coming on.
Yes.
What kind of special duties does he have? We'll know up front to bring him up front.
Yeah, I think he's also attached to the SWAT team. He's currently serving as the municipal court officer, but he's been involved in everything, and he is our Shawnee Police Department Officer of the Year.
Wonderful. So we go out with a bang. I'm going to miss you guys. Tomorrow's going to be our last episode for a little while. We'll have to think of something else to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, as always, thank you very much. And I'm just going to leave you guys on as we take it out. The series is Police Positive. And the reason we called it that is because here in the City of Five Nations, it really is positive when we talk about our police department, and we want everybody to know the wonderful people that reside in the community that work down at our police department. We're all just one community, all living mostly right in this area and spending 90% of our time together. So we might as well all get along. And we've done nothing but prove that, I think, this week, and how wonderful the young men and women are down in blue in the City of Five Nations, where all of us together, we are building community one season at a time. So this is where we wave and say goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.